Ojoojúmọ́ làwọn ìbò aláwọ̀ funfun yàn wá jẹ láfíríkà. Wọ́n kó wa lẹ́rú. Wọ́n tún fi ẹ̀sìn kó wa lómi ọbẹ̀. Wọ́n tún fi ẹ̀sìn sí búrẹ́dì láti kó wa lómi ọbẹ̀. Orílẹ̀-èdè Áfíríkà lè gbára wọn lọ́wọ́ àwọn European countries tàbí àwọn tí a ń pè ní West, àwọn orílẹ̀-èdè akónilẹ́rú tí wọ́n fàgbò fégún tí wọn ò jọ okùn rẹ̀ lẹ̀ lélẹ̀ tó túmọ̀ sí pé wọ́n mèkì wa, gbogbo resources wa àwọn ni wọ́n tún jẹ gàba lé lórí títí dòní. Àwọn orílẹ̀-èdè Áfíríkà kan ti wá ń gbìyànjú láti bọ́ kúrò lóko ẹrú àwọn ìbò amúnisìn. Lára wọn ni Burkina Faso, lára wọn ni Chad, Mali àti bẹ́ẹ̀ bẹ́ẹ̀ lọ. Lélẹ́yìí tó jẹ́ wípé kì í ṣe àsìkò yìí ní irú ìjàngbara bẹ́ẹ̀ ti bẹ̀rẹ̀. Ó ti bẹ̀rẹ̀ látàyé àwọn baba wa, àmín látàyé àwọn Chief OBAFEMI Awolowo. Ṣé ẹ gbàgbé pé mo ní ohun kan jáde láti inú ibojì? That is the voice of Chief OBAFEMI Jeremiah Oyeniyi Awolowo. Bónírèsí bá kọ̀ tó lòun ò fín gbámọ́, eléyìí tó ti fín sílẹ̀ ò ní parẹ́. Àpilẹ̀kọ Chief OBAFEMI Awolowo lọ́jọ́ ajé Monday 16th September 1968 ní eléyìí tó pé àkórí ẹ̀ ní If we are united, we shall succeed collectively and severally. Chief OBAFEMI Awolowo's closing address to the fifth session of the Organization of African Unity in Algeria on Monday 26th September 1968 in the name of Nigerian Head of State and Government Major General Yakubu Gowon and of the people of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and on behalf of myself and my colleagues on the Nigeria delegation, I extend my very hearty and warm thanks to His Excellency the President of the Revolutionary Council and the head of Democratic and Popular Republic of Algeria, Colonel Owari Boumediene, for the profuse kindness and lavish hospitality which I and my colleagues have enjoyed since the Ministerial Council of the OAU commenced its meeting here on the 4th of this month. I also want to seize this opportunity to reiterate Nigeria's great admiration for the gallant and indomitable people of Algeria, for the bravery and selflessness which they demonstrated throughout the period of their long and historic fight for freedom. The inspiration which their struggles gave to other countries in Africa will never die or abate. Indeed, their epic struggles will forever constitute an imperishable episode in the annals of man's long and arduous march to liberty. The impressive attendance, especially of the heads of states and government at the OAU summit, is at once a glowing tribute to the great Algeria people and a measure of the affection which all countries of Africa have for them and their leaders. I also very warmly congratulate President Boumediene for the supreme success of the Algiers summit of the Organization of African Unity. This Algiers summit is unique in more ways than one. At this summit, the OAU had handled a number of delicate issues with unsurpassed maturity, constancy, consistency, and complete freedom from pressures foreign to Africa. Between the Kinshasa and Algiers summits, our organization was visibly threatened by the monster of division, a monster whose father and mother are, respectively, envy and subservience to foreign influences inimical to African interest. At this summit, the monster has been very seriously scourged, but it would be naive to suggest that it has been destroyed. Between now and the next summit, it will be paramount duty of every member state to do all in its power to slay the ghost of this monster once and for all. in the life of our great continent. I say this because whenever you turn the urgent and imperative need for African unity and solidarity not only stare you in the face, but also cries very loud for the most devoted attention. Educationally, economically, and technologically, our continent remains one of the most backward areas of the world. As hitherto, Africans of all people of African descent continue to be the butt of all manner of inhuman treatment and degradation to the whites in South Africa and Rhodesian. Africans are nothing but anthropoid apes, as Hitler once contemptuously termed them. The white settlers in South Africa and Rhodesia have forcibly expropriated our peoples of all the larger and richer portions of their lands and relegated them to the status of permanent subordination and unmitigated drudgery in the political and economic affairs of their own motherlands. In the USA, the Negro Americans suffer great social disabilities, so much so that there are now clear signs that the recent violent rioting by the Negroes will degenerate into civil war between white and black Americans. The latent color prejudice, which has always existed in Britain but which has hitherto been cleverly suppressed, is now bubbling to the surface, and there is a real danger of racial violence directed against dark-skinned people domiciled in Britain. In the pursuit of their naked self-interest, the developed countries of the world continue to exploit and cheat Africa as well as other underdeveloped countries by means of every contrivance and artifice which man's ingenuity can invent, within the result that the gap between us and them widens. With the years, they are getting rapidly richer and we are getting steadily and relatively poorer. To capital, the great powers of the world have grouped themselves into two mutually antagonist ideological camps and seek feverishly and frantically to entice African states into their respective spheres of influence. To this end, aids are provided to us in kind and in cash, but our prospective donors always make such that each aid or loan carries with it a host of humiliation, strings, and conditions which tend materially to help them more than us and to undermine our strength and vitality for united and concerned action by ensuring our permanent economic dependence on them in the face of all these disabilities, which are by no means inherent in us or incurable. We need, among other things, the impregnable armor of single-minded unity, solidarity, and fraternity among our different countries. But instead of directing our energies toward this end, what do we find? While many of us are truly dedicated and inflexible in our resolution to terminate apartheid, Iron-Smithism and Salazarism in Africa, some of us have embraced veterism with reservation and are even encouraging the disruption and disintegration of member states in flagrant violation of some of the provisions of Articles 2 and 3 of the OAU Charter and in deliberate disregard of some of the resolutions passed by the OAU in pursuance of these provisions. It will appear that the real ambition which animated the founders of the OAU and dominated their acts are beginning to depart from some of us. This is a most dangerous and contagious trend, and we hold it as a duty to Africa, to our respective countries, to arrest this deterioration and decay before the spread too far to be contained. In this connection, I would like to express the warm appreciation and profound gratitude of the government and people of Nigeria to those 33 member states who voted yesterday for the resolution on Nigeria. By this action, they have shown their unflinching commitment to the principles of national unity and territorial integrity, without which Africa just cannot survive as a viable political and economic entity. These 33 states have also shown deep understanding of the imperialist intrigues and at work against Nigeria as part of the imperialist overall strategy of continuing the political domination and economic exploitation of Africa. It is clear to these states that imperialists and colonialists, with their abominable techniques of the fight and rule, are striving hard to use the Nigeria crisis as a means of driving a wedge among the member states of our organization. The serious consequences of this dangerous trend for the future of the organization should be a matter for serious reflection and constant vigilance by member states. There is, therefore, a pressing need for us from now on to renew our pledge to observe the provisions of our charter to the letter, and with absolute fidelity. To this end, we must at all times condemn, both in word and in action, every form of political, economic and social oppression and discrimination against Africans or peoples of African descent, both in Africa or in any other part of the world. We must regard every African state as an indivisible organism or entity. We must all regard every resolution for the OAU as absolutely binding. We must respect and observe it at all times, and we must do everything in our power to give effect to it. We must make it our cardinal polity to support every African government of the day, whatever the ideological or other character of such a government. In other words, the legitimacy of ideological acceptability of every government for the time being, as well as integrity of its existing territory, must be assumed and upheld by all of us without any quibble whatsoever. We must denounce unilateral declaration of independence, otherwise known as UID, with unequivocal vehemence, and must seek to crush such a political monstrosity by force of Africa. We must do more. We must cherish the principle of non-interference as a sacred article of faith. In this connection, I would like to emphasize that peace in any society will be impossible to maintain if every family regards it as its business to interfere in the domestic affairs of another family. It is not disputed that in the name of mutual friendship, our family may give admonition to another family, but as all of us here will testify from personal experience, even this task is never undertaken without express or clearly implies invitation, and in any case, it is always approached with extreme caution and circumspection, and with the sole object of promoting and preserving the corporate existence of the other family. Otherwise, the bond of friendship which subsisted between the two families will be broken beyond repairs, and bitter hostility will take the place of amity. It follows from all this remark that OAU must continue, as it has done in the past, to denounce secession or rebellion of whatever kind of guise. It must continue to work assiduously for the termination of all forms of oppression, discrimination and colonialism in any part of Africa. It must continue without relenting to foster the unity of every African country, realizing that the unity of the whole of Africa is in its constituent states, and it must resolutely resist and strongly discouraged its members from succumbing to the temptation to interfere in the internal affairs of another African state. These then, in concrete terms, are the irrevocable objectives of the OAU, and it must be borne in mind that any departure from any of these noble objectives will be bound to lead to strife, acrimony, and irreconcilable cleavage among member states, and hence to total ineffectiveness, if not the complete death, of the OAU itself. It is easy to recognize the advantages of unity and to discern the dangers of division in the African context. If we are united, we shall succeed collectively and severally. If we are divided, we shall for a certainty perish individually in the hands either of our former colonial masters or of the new imperialists who are now making a desperate search for African spheres of influence. In unity, we lose nothing but our economic chains. Indeed, in unity, we gain many things, including economic independence and the welfare of our entire peoples. But in division, we will lose many things and gain nothing but neocolonialism, permanent economic bondage, and mutually destructive hostilities among ourselves. Let us therefore remain united, and let us do so resolutely, faithfully, and unflinchingly. Mr. President, I thank you for the opportunity given to me to address this august assembly. That was Chief OBAFEMI Awolowo'S closing address to the 5th section of the Organization of African Unity, OAU, in Algeria on Monday, 16th September 1968, titled, "If we are united, we shall succeed collectively and severally."